my real role today is to introduce to all of you Romesh Wadhwani. I have my time in knowing Romesh, this remarkable man, is only about 4 years, and maybe 4.5 years. Romesh has been active in building a better world for many years, not only for himself, this remarkable success as an entrepreneur, but he's converting and using his personal wealth to build good things for the rest of the world, and especially for India and America. And I must say, it's an inspiration. I'm very grateful. He's on my board. He's a challenging director on my board, but he makes me do a better job every day, and we're delighted that he's here today to open this conference. Romesh, would you please come up? Thank you for being here.
Well, it's wonderful to be here and to see all of you. As you know, the economic agenda between the US and India is now in the forefront, as it should be, but it has not been for the last many, many years. So finally, I think we are taking the right steps in the right direction, and I think it'll be great for both countries, as we will learn today. Just by way of background, I want to thank both the CSIS and the Anand Center for helping to organize today's event, and obviously the pace of today's event will pick up towards the afternoon, starting with the bar at 5 o'clock, but working backwards, Finance Minister Jetli's presentation at 4:30, which will be the pre-bar celebration. The mission of the Wadhwani Foundation is to accelerate economic development in the emerging economies, with a particular focus on India. And we've had this mission for over 10 years when the foundation was started, and I'm giving essentially all my wealth and my net worth back through the Wadhwani Foundation. And our focus in accelerating economic development is primarily through entrepreneurship, small business growth, and skills development. So we have large-scale initiatives in each of these areas. The scale that we are building is growing from the hundreds to the thousands to the hundreds of thousands, and now, for the first time, we feel somewhat confident in talking about strategies and plans to affect the lives of millions. We've started in India, but a few months ago, about a year ago, we also launched initiatives in Pakistan, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And before the end of this year, we would like to kick off similar initiatives in entrepreneurship, skills development, and related areas in 3 African countries. So we are in the process of selecting them. We have to build a staff. Because we are trying to do things at scale, it's very difficult to work with NGOs in India because many of them are unable to scale at the rate at which we need them to scale. So we have a combination. We have a full-time staff of 100 people, and we also work with half a dozen of the better NGOs in India to achieve this kind of scale. I met Prime Minister Modi in September in New York when he was here, and I came away, it was about an hour meeting, very, very engaged, even though he had 12 advisors on his side. The conversation was entirely 100% between him and me, and that's good in the sense that he knew absolutely what he was talking about, and he was completely in command of the subject. It did seem to suggest that there wasn't very much oxygen for anyone else in the room, but it was a great conversation, and I came away with the impression that, first of all, he's very strongly pro-business. Secondly, that he's extremely high energy. Thirdly, he's willing to take risks and make commitments that previous Indian administrations have been unwilling to do. And fourthly, that he completely understands the importance of foreign direct investment and the engagement of the US business community as a critical success factor in driving job creation and skills development in India. So in his mind, as it should be, these are very tightly connected together. One of the thoughts that I left him with, which he wasn't aware of previously, is that in a recent 7-year period, India had GDP growth of 40%, not surprising, right? 6-7% a year, 7 years, cumulatively 40%, but job growth was 1%. So we only created 2.7 million net new jobs in India during that same period. That means there's clearly a huge disconnect between economic planning for GDP growth and economic planning for job growth. Now, in the US, that disconnect, first of all, is much less, but even if it was large, it would be okay because the base employment is so large as a percentage of the population. In India, particularly in the organized sector, the need for job growth to be more or less equivalent to GDP growth is absolutely paramount, but on the other hand, is not the case. So the whole point of my discussion with him was around the kinds of strategies and initiatives that are required to fix this enormous gap. Even today, today's newspapers, for example, talk about the fact that Chinese growth will be 6.5% a year, India's GDP growth will be 7.5% a year. If India's GDP growth of 7.5% a year is similar to, qualitatively, what it was over the last 7 or 8 years, it means that job growth will lag significantly behind, and I think that would be catastrophic. Now, when Finance Minister Jaitley talks this evening, he will be talking about the importance of India's demography and youth being translated into a dividend rather than a disaster, but it could go either way. And if we don't have enough focus on job creation and skills development, India's demographic growth could actually be a disaster. On the other hand, if India does things right, if the US business community takes advantage of that opportunity, it could very much be a demographic dividend, which is, of course, what we are hoping for. So there are a number of key initiatives. There's the whole idea of job growth planning simultaneous with GDP planning and connecting the dots, which has not been the case before. There's the acceleration of entrepreneurship to create millions of new jobs. There's the need for innovation in small business so we can add another 10 million jobs. There's skills development because sometimes the availability of skills is in itself a job creator because of the cause and effect relationship. So helping to skill 25 million people over the next 5 years, that's going to be a very important growth driver. But ultimately, India is going to have to connect the dots between creating 25 million new jobs over the next 5 years and filling those 25 million jobs with very high quality human capital. Now, for large businesses in the US, that may raise the question of why do we care? And the answer is you should care very much because this is exactly what opens up the opportunity for foreign direct investment in India. So I was in India in February. I met 4 of the key ministers in Prime Minister Modi's government, and I came away with 3 impressions. The first is they're energized. So whereas the ministers in the previous cabinet were essentially half asleep and half unsure about what their future would be, here I had the feeling that these guys, these ministers, were feeling strongly pressured by the Prime Minister to work long hours, do good things, and actually be measured by outcomes and not just by words, which again has been part of India's history. So the sense of energy was actually quite energizing for me as well. The second thing is that many of them are starting to think about initiatives that will make a difference. And the third is each of the 4 of them indicated a strong desire to work with US business because they realize that between the US government and US business, that's where the magic of the relationship lies between US and India. It is not just government to government. And on the business side, there are lots of opportunities in India. So one very good example is the Make in India initiative, where the Prime Minister and a number of his other ministers are committed to expanding manufacturing. But in consideration for that, they're also beginning to open up investment rules that will make it easier to invest in India. So it started in the insurance industry. There's been progress in the defense industry. And I think progressively you will see a lot of progress on the relaxation of the regulations that I think hurt the performance of the Manmohan Singh government. Similarly, the Smart Cities Initiative, great opportunity for innovation, great opportunity for US companies and companies from other countries to invest in India. And through a combination of initiatives like Make in India, smart cities, innovation, entrepreneurship, I think we can achieve the best of both worlds, which is great business opportunity for American companies and job creation and skills development in India. So what could be better than that? And that's the spirit of today's conference. And of course, we're all looking forward to what Finance Minister Jaitley has to say, but I think you will find his remarks in some ways, will cover, will focus on this particular topic. One final word. The Wadhwani Foundation has, as you know, funded a policy chair at CSIS. This is, of course, Rick is the policy chair, and Rick has been a key organizer of today's event. But we are also building up towards a major leadership event in September or October this year. It will be in Washington, D.C. And at that particular event, we hope to have perhaps 50 to 100 of the key policymakers from the US and an equal number of policymakers from India, including critical ministers of Prime Minister Modi's government, as well as a number of chief ministers and their secretaries and their staffs, so that through this very active and engaged dialogue, we'll be able to move these initiatives forward at faster and faster speed. Thank you.